My name is Roger Sedjo. I work for Resources for the Future, which is a nonprofit, independent, non-advocacy think tank in Washington, D.C. I'm a senior fellow there, and I tend to specialize in forestry issues. I think forest certification is very important with respect to responsible forestry. Prior to the development of forest certification, one never knew whether or not the wood coming from the forest was coming from a forest that was managed sustainably, was managed with best practices. So on the one hand, the user was uncertain about the use of the wood and the sources of the wood and whether there was damage associated with that. On the other hand, the producer did not necessarily have incentives to practice good forest management. What we have now is a system where producers have incentive to practice good forestry. They want to practice forestry toward long-term sustainability. And users have confidence because they know that the wood is certified. They know that there is an independent audit associated with that certification. And from that point of view, they can have confidence that their use of wood is not being destructive to the forests and the forest systems. The issues have to do with how to fine-tune some of these aspects of certification and forest management, how to do a better job of auditing, how the dynamic changes through time, how these standards will change and adapt as we learn more about how forest systems work. We see some standards that aren't working as well as they should. So some of those issues need to be addressed, and there are a variety of opinions as to how best to address those, and you have some of the world's leading experts here discussing those. SFI is in a unique position with respect to bringing in large numbers of producers that might otherwise be more skeptical of a certification process. So there are lots of players in this, and partnerships among those players, I think, is very important. Well, I got involved in certification, forest certification, probably 20 years ago. And some of the early meetings that I was involved in, I must admit, I had a certain degree of skepticism with respect to whether this would work. I think time has proven that it's turned out to be a pretty good idea. It's not perfect. Everything isn't working perfectly, but it's working much better than, frankly, I would have expected when I first was discussing this with others 20 years ago. There are a host of things that I hope to get out of this. One of the interesting things is just interacting with other people that have the same set of interests, and just sitting around over a cup of coffee and discussing what some of the issues are, and having exposure to folks that you don't usually have exposure to. In addition, they have a real all-star cast of people giving presentations. Some really interesting people, some of whom I have not met but I've heard of, and so it's going to be very helpful to me to be able to listen to some of those.